if you can see it, it is the Mississippi River, and it's a bluff in Iowa overlooking, is it Iowa or Wisconsin? Are you going down? Wisconsin. Wisconsin. The other side is Iowa. And on those bluffs, you have what they call effigies, which are mounds, which can be in the shape of animals. In this case, they were in the shape of marching bears, but we didn't get any good pictures of that. So we're just going to show you the what people saw from the bluff where those effigies were. And now we went down the river quite a bit to basically east of St. Louis. And this is called Cahokia. And my trusty travel companion stood there for to give you a sense of scale. And that is a human construction, that mound. It used to be a little bit bigger and it's worn down a little bit, but as you can see, it was pretty big. Now, that was only just one of several mounds in a complex. This is called Cahokia, and it is the largest ceremonial complex in all of North America, not including Mexico. Now, how big is it? Well, this is the main structure. And as you can see, that is pretty big. It is 10 stories high. It's 100 feet high. It has 2 levels. And the top apparently was big enough to hold 4,000 people in a contemporary event that took place several years there. So this is a really big construction. Lest anybody think that this is a hill that they sculpted, you can, when you get to the top of that thing, and if I was thinking ahead, I would have shown you a picture of what it looks like from the top. You'd see that 360 degrees, it is entirely flat. Okay, so this was not a natural hill. This was made by man. The footprint of this thing is the equivalent of the footprint of the Great Pyramid at Giza. All right, so it's not made of stone. They didn't have stone, I guess, or they didn't want to bother with it. It is made of earth. And this, I believe, was made a UNESCO site several years ago. Now, how do you become a UNESCO site? You just apply and pay money. I think you could probably get your backyard declared a UNESCO site if you just paid the right people the right amount of money. But this certainly merits being a UNESCO site. This is one of the most spectacular human creations in all of North America, north of Mexico. And I bet they didn't teach about it in school. All right, next up. Okay, this is in Ohio, Southern Ohio. Now, the news today, literally today, or maybe tomorrow, if this doesn't get out in time, is that this Southern Ohio region has been declared also a UNESCO site. There are many of these complexes, like lots and lots and lots of them, and they are complexes. As you can see, this is not just one mound. This is a whole bunch of different mounds laid out in a specific configuration. Now, they have a handy dandy thing to show you how it was laid out. They did it on metals, kind of cool. The entire complex, which is big, I mean, it's like acres and acres and acres, is surrounded by a wall that has 2 entry points. And there are mounds of various sizes and various configurations. Now, we did a video several years ago, which if I can find it, I'll put it below, which is somebody talking about the fact that all of these Ohio mound complexes, and again, there are many of them, many still remaining, and there were many, 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 many more before settlers came and disassembled them and plowed them under. The reason they disassembled them is there were building materials in there, a lot of clay. So if you wanted to make bricks and didn't want to have to hunt around for clay, you could just take one of these mounds apart and have a ton of clay at your disposal. But anyway, this is the layout of one of the famous ones. And I'm going to, if assuming I can even remember the name, I'm going to completely butcher the name. And I can't remember the name. How do you like that? All right. This is one of my favorite mounds. This is also in Ohio. There was a complex there as well. Parts of it are remaining throughout the city. There's a smallish, compared to the one in Cahokia in East St. Louis, platform mound, very definitive platform mound. And in the ancient times, well, before 1840, when it was dissembled, there was a pretty significant, I guess, I don't know what it was really, but it was a walled pathway with walls about 8 or 9 feet high on either side that went from not this mound, but a similar, but not a similar mound, but a platform mound, same town, and the walls went straight down to the river. And again, they were filled with clay, and a brickmaker decided to undo the walls. However, this remained. As you can see, this is not a small structure. It's pretty big. It's in a cemetery, and the cemetery is reputed to have more Revolutionary War officers buried there than any other place in the entirety of America. It's called Marietta, Ohio, and a lot of promises were made to people during the Revolutionary War, and the way those promises were kept is veterans were given land in Ohio. And Marietta was the kind of the place where the land was distributed. And a lot of people just stuck around the Marietta area and ended up being buried in this large cemetery. But this mound is right in the middle of it. It's one of my favorite ones. Speaking of favorite mounds, this is the first mound I ever saw. It's in a town called Moundsville in West Virginia, and it is big. This photograph tries to give you an impression of exactly how big, but imagine that staircase wraps around again and takes you to the top. And the top is, pretty good size. They flattened it out. And this is on the Ohio River. So even though it's not in Ohio proper, it's part of this huge collection of mounds and mound sites in the Ohio River Valley. And again, this is Moundsville, West Virginia. Here's what it looks like from the top of the mound. As you can see, a pretty big flat area on the top. They've done some things to it. They put this stone wall. There's a beautiful museum there, a really, really good museum. And this was the first mound I ever saw, or recognized as a mound. And it kind of blew me away. Now, when I talk about recognizing things as a mound, there are a lot of mounds out there, especially in the Ohio River Valley, that are not recognized as Indian mounds. We call them Indian mounds. We don't really know who made them. They guess. They give names to the people, the Hopewell people, but that doesn't really tell you much. But when you drive through this area, you see all kinds of weird stuff. Like this is on an absolutely flat geography. There's no rolling hills. There's nothing. And all of a sudden you come up to this perfectly sculpted, pretty large platform mound. And on that store up there they call it a smoke shop. I guess you buy tobacco, and maybe these days you buy bongs and CBD and all that kind of stuff. I guarantee the guy that built that building for the purpose of operating that store did not also build a mound, perfectly symmetrical platform mound to put it on. It was there. And these things are everywhere once your eyes open up. There's a ton of them in the South, in Louisiana, in Mississippi, in Alabama, in Georgia, in Florida, in Tennessee, in Kentucky, in Indiana, in Illinois. I'm leaving any out. There's a handful of them left in New York State, not many. The real sort of sweet spot for this stuff would be the Ohio River Valley and all that sort of that band of land that goes from northern Mississippi to northern Alabama to Georgia. There's a lot of big mounds. Nobody really knows who made them. Unfortunately, a lot of them were looted. In fact, I think I made reference to this in an earlier video several months ago that the looting of Indian mounds was so popular during the colonial era that even Benjamin Franklin had to write about it. And he was worried that instead of plowing fields and cutting down timber and all this kind of productive stuff, too many Americans were digging into mounds. Now, what they found and where all this stuff went is your guess. Uh, some of the stuff has been saved and is in museums, and it's quite interesting. A lot of it has Mesoamerica stuff, Central American, Mayan kind of a look. Makes sense. Makes sense. We know the Mayans suddenly disappeared. Where did they go? I mean, they didn't just vaporize. Maybe they went north and they used some of the same uh, complex building uh, skills that they developed down south, uh, especially when you look at this thing. Well, again, did I tell you this? We did a video that these were configured in the shape of constellations, and we'll put that video down below. So it looks random. It looks like they just, put one here and one here and one here. But actually, when you overlay it on a constellation, you realize this is a constellation. And this was a particular feature of the Southern Ohio or the Ohio River Valley. So that would include Kentucky. That would include, I guess, parts of Indiana. That would include West Virginia. And yeah, I guess parts of Illinois too. These were complexes, and a lot of them were individually sculptured to reflect um, the constellations. And again, here's what it looks like when you're on the ground. There's just all these different mounds of different sizes and different places. And if we go back, here's the granddaddy of all North American mounds, Cahokia. That's 10 stories high. 4,000 people can walk around. Maybe they have to walk around carefully, but it's big enough to fit 4,000 people on the top. So anyway, this is my recent trip through the great, we'll call them Indian mounds, the Indian mound country. There's a whole lot more out there. My next trip, I'm going to go to Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana, Tennessee, maybe even, and see those and get some pictures and bring those back. So there's a lot more to American history than we've ever been told, and nobody really knows what the real history is. One of the things that you hear in the histories of these mounds is that when the original European settlers came, well, some of these were just invisible, like the one in Moundsville was in a thick woods. Nobody even knew it was there. It had been built, grown over, and completely forgotten. But also a lot of settlers report that when they asked the native people who built these, and they said, "Damned if we know. They were here when we got here." So people tell you they understand history. I don't think they understand history at all. But anyway, the Earth mounds, the Indian mounds of North America, there are a lot of them, a lot more than we realize, and the amazing thing is they're just a tiny fraction of what was here when the European folks arrived.
Brass Check TV, free to you, not free to us. We've got a server bill, we've got an email software bill, we've got a tech helper bill, and that happens every month. So to everybody that is supporting us financially, that's paying for their subscription in one way or another, we really appreciate it. If you're not, consider doing so. Everybody's got money for the newspaper and the cable bill and all that. Do you have money for media that's actually serving you? That's really the issue here. And when you help us, it allows us to get this information out to the world. So thanks to all our supporters, and if you're not a supporter already, please consider becoming one.